Hello, welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melody Parrish, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Today, for the month of January, we're talking about how to begin again and how to start off a new year with goals, how to attain those goals. And I wanted to talk today. It's something very important, I feel like, in our journey that we have to get right. We have to understand. And that is boundaries. Boundaries are so important. And I don't think people realize the importance of boundaries and how freeing boundaries can be. I was talking in one of my videos about the song by Joan Jett, I Hate Myself for Loving You. And that talks about constantly going back and returning into a situation that you know isn't good for you. You know that situation, whatever it may be, it doesn't have to be a relationship. But you know it's bad for you. You know it's not the right thing for you. And yet you go back. Maybe you go back because you're addicted. Maybe you go back for comfort. Maybe you go back because that's how it's always been and you don't think it can be any different. For whatever reason, you go back even though you know that it's not the best thing for you. And that's what I want to talk about today, is setting those boundaries around us to where we know that once this boundary is crossed, that we have to leave, whatever situation it is. And I want to talk too about the idea of boundaries. We have just this generalized idea, I think, that society feeds us, that boundaries are walls that we build up around ourselves to either protect ourselves and keep people out, or just to box ourselves in and not let people in. But that's not true. I want us to take a look at a boundary, not as a wall, but maybe as a door. And if we look at it through that lens of these being doors, then the door is shut to keep people out, or keep things or harmful things out and harmful situations. But we have the power to choose who we let through that door. It's not keeping everybody out. It's just allowing those that are good for us, those situations that are healthy for us, those relationships, those people that light us up, that feed us, that give us good energy, letting those people in so that we can be in a healthy mental state and we can function healthily in the world. And that's a very important thing. The wall gives the power to the person on the outside. Are they going to climb the wall? Are they going to break the wall down? Or what are they going to do to that wall that we've built up? And when we look at boundaries, I think that is what we've been led to believe a boundary is. And it gives the power to the other person. But when we actually look at boundaries as doors, as what they are, it gives the power back to us to let in those that we want to let in, to let in everything, the situations, the ideas, the thoughts, the people. but we have the power to let those into our lives and not the reverse. And I think that's so important. This year, my goal is to help people see that they are powerful in themselves. And I'm wanting to help people to see that they can take that power back that they have given to other people. I'm still learning this. I'm still doing this, but I'd love to share this with you and to go on this journey with you. Because what I've learned in the last few years is that I gave away a lot of power to people and to situations and to things, ideas, thoughts that I didn't need to give away. There was no reason for me to give that power to those things, those people, those situations. And so gradually I'm learning to take that power back to me. And I think that's extremely important for people to understand, because I feel like that we as a people at this moment feel powerless, especially with things that are going on in this world. And I don't really like to get political all the time, but in all of the political fallout that's happening and all of the hatred that's going on and all of the violence, you know, we all feel powerless because we've given power to the wrong situation, to the wrong thoughts, to the wrong words, to the wrong people. And we need to, as a people and as a community, we need to take that power back. We need to take that power back. And I'm talking about personally, professionally, in society. I'm talking about everywhere. We need to take power back and not give it to other people or other thoughts. You know, even your thoughts, even your ideas, you know, you can let a bad idea just take over your mind and just take over your day. It can just destroy your day. And we need to take that power back and make positive thoughts, let positive ideas come in. So that's my goal, is to move forward with that knowledge and that idea of taking our power back. And I'd love for you to join me on that journey. Now, when we talk about boundaries and setting them, you know, people don't like boundaries. When we set boundaries, people don't always like it. It doesn't always feel comfortable for either of us. And I'm specifically talking about our boundaries with people in relationships, be it romantic relationship, friendship, coworkers, familial, whatever it may be. If you set boundaries, not everybody's going to like it, and it's going to be awkward and difficult for both you and the other person. But you need to think about it as advocating for yourself. Why don't we think about it as advocating for ourselves? We're not trying to change their behavior. We're not trying to change or convince them that they need to do differently, that they need to act differently, be different. We're not saying any of that. All we're saying is we're advocating for ourselves, and we're saying, look, this may be what you do or who you are, but this is a boundary that I can't let you cross. So if you are this way, if you believe this way, if you feel this way or act this way, then I can't let you into my close space. And, you know, we need to be more advocates for ourselves, right? We need to advocate for ourselves more. It's easy to advocate for others. I find it so easy to stand up for somebody else and I can look at somebody else and say, oh, you're being treated poorly. Oh, that's wrong. I can't believe they did that. But it's really hard for me to look internally and see where other people have done those exact same things to me and how maybe it was not good for me either. You know, I just think I think that boundaries are so important, and it's just such an expression of self-love. Uh, we don't need it's not like we need to have kindness towards people who are treating us poorly. And we need to, well, maybe I shouldn't say it like that. You should always be kind to everyone, but you need to set boundaries not as being mean, not as being hateful, but just as saying, you know what, I care about myself. I'm going to be kind to myself, and I'm not going to let your negativity or what what you stand for or what you do, I'm not letting that into my space. And it's also important not just for that, but we need to also realize that we need to hold each other, not just the other person, but myself as well, accountable for our actions. And we need to let people know that these actions are not okay for me. These actions may not be appropriate for me. Maybe it's appropriate for others, but not for me. Um, and you know, we'll talk about when we start um, when we start setting boundaries for people. It's hard. It is so hard, and people don't like it. People do not like it, and um, when you first start to do that, people will label you as crazy, selfish, or my favorite, difficult. Women always get named difficult. Oh, she's such a difficult woman. Oh, she's just crazy. She's so emotional. There's so many words and labels that people in general in society put on women that stand up for themselves or that advocate for themselves or that say, wait, this is not okay. And I'm not going to let you into my space. And, that doesn't just go for women, that goes for so many people, different people, and our marginalized communities of various types. When we all start standing up for ourselves, advocating for ourselves, and setting those boundaries that we don't want to be crossed, we are labeled as difficult, selfish, crazy, and that's manipulation. That's manipulation from whoever that is, because manipulators hate boundaries. Manipulators and narcissists, they hate boundaries, and they will do whatever it takes to get you to let them through that boundary. They're on the other side of that door that boundary is created. and they're beating and beating and beating on that door and yelling and screaming, and they're telling you you're a terrible person for keeping that door closed, you're selfish, you're crazy. What are you thinking about? Why are you being so difficult? You've changed. You're not the same person that you once were. They tell you all kinds of things like that because they can't handle that. They can't handle your growth. They can't handle your acknowledgement that, well, that situation may not have been the best for me. So I just think that in general, we need to start putting up these boundaries. We need to start setting ourselves up and prioritizing our happiness and protecting our peace. Because that's what's going to happen. You set up a boundary and it's so freeing. That's why I don't like the idea of walls boxing us in, of boundaries being walls, because when you set boundaries, you become free. So you're not walled in, you're not boxed in, but you're more free. Or I feel like, the boundaries that I've set, I've definitely gained so much freedom. And it's difficult. I have had people in my life, very, very, very close relationships. And I've had to set boundaries. I've had to set boundaries of time that I can spend with these people, because I know if I spend longer than X amount of time, that it's no longer good for me. For whatever reason, it's no longer good for me. So I've set that boundary. As long I can spend time with this person as long as it's this amount of time. But at this amount of time, I have to stop and cut off the communication for a little bit because it's not good for me mentally anymore. It's difficult. It's extremely difficult because the relationships were close. It's extremely difficult. And I find myself in a way kind of falling back away from that boundary sometimes, even starting to believe that, okay, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they've changed, maybe, whatever. But every time I do that and I allow myself to think those things, I always find out that I'm wrong. Sometimes things don't change. People can change. I'm not saying people can't, but sometimes they don't. Personal change is all about a choice. If you don't choose to change, you're not going to. You have to first choose to change. And some people never choose to change because they don't see what they're doing as wrong, and they don't see that what they're doing is hurting others. So, when I first started putting up these boundaries towards these individuals, I was told that I was being selfish. I'm still, to this day, every now and then told that I'm being selfish or I'm not thinking of that person. I have been told that I was difficult. I've been told that, I stop being so sensitive. Stop being so sensitive is just a code for let me continue to disrespect you. Let me continue to gaslight you or to try and get a reaction out of you. Let me somehow mentally abuse you. That's what it means. stop being so sensitive just downplays what I'm actually doing to you and what you're feeling. And I've been told that by these individuals. I've been told all these things, and it because these individuals and I had close relationships. That's tough to hear. That's so hard to hear. And I found myself in many, many, many of these times doubting myself and being like, maybe they are right. Maybe I am selfish. Maybe I am a terrible person. All these things. And then I go back down that rabbit hole. And then I have to get myself back out of that rabbit hole and climb out and understand actually what's happening. Understand why this person is saying these things. Understand that it has nothing to do with me. What they're saying has nothing to do with me, but everything to do with them. And so that's the difficulty about setting boundaries, right? Because sometimes if we're in those situations, we'll get pulled right back in. Like the song says, I want to walk, but I run back to you. And that can be anything. I've heard addicts talk about, walking away and being like a week, a month, a year sober or drug free, and then one thing happens and they just go back. I've heard people going back to romantic relationships just because of one instance, and they know that this isn't the right relationship for them. Friendships. People say, I don't know why I'm friends with this person because they act like this or because they do this, but I'm still friends with them. Even coworkers, sometimes people feel like, well, I have to be their friend, or I have to do this because we work together or because of this or that, or you can come up with 1,000,001 reasons why to go back, why to do these things. And when you start, I know me personally, I have a lot of different ideas and negative cognitive uh, ideas that come up, and I will find myself, no matter how much I do not want to think about these things, or how much I feel like I've grown and can move away from these negative cognitions, somehow they always come back. They always come up. But it's my choice whether to believe it or not. It's my choice whether to fall back into that idea and that vicious cycle that can get you in. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I fall back into it, and sometimes I don't. It all depends. But with all of these situations, even if we go somewhere, go to a location where something's happening and we know we don't agree with what's happening, or it doesn't put us in a good situation, but we're there anyway. That's another thing, and it's so hard to do, to stop doing it. So what I want to do is I want to instead, I think of it a lot of times because I have a very vivid imagination. I see things and I feel things, and I'm very visual. And so I like to think of it as a rope. And whatever it is, the negative situation, the negative person, the negative idea is on one end of the rope and I'm on the other. And we're in a tug of war. And sometimes, everything's fine. Sometimes I have the rope, the other has the rope, yet we're fine. Nobody's pulling each other. We're just walking or we're just standing or whatever, peacefully. But every now and then, there'll be a tug on that rope. There'll be a tug from that negative cognition in my situation, or the negative person that I have created these boundaries with. There'll be a tug and a pull, and the pull gets stronger and stronger, and it's up to me to stop it, to stand my ground and stop being pulled. And so we need to think about how we're not going to get pulled back in, sucked back in to those ideas. And it's hard. If it was easy, then it wouldn't be work. Then all of this emotional and mental growth would not be such hard work. If it was easy, if any of this was easy. But I can tell you, and it's something that it lasts a lifetime. It's not like a one and done, or after a couple months or a couple years, you're free. It's going to last your lifetime. So just be prepared for it to last your lifetime. But I'd like for us to start always when we're starting to come into a new mental practice or a new spiritual practice, a new emotional practice. I like to just pause and just be in silence for, a span of time, a minute, 5, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever time you have. And even if you're in the middle of a spiral that you feel like you're out of control, just take a minute, just pause, just break that cycle. And it's so hard, but it takes practice. Just break that cycle where you can think, where you can stop and think. But this is what I do too at the beginning of the year. I talked about on the previous episode of kind of having some time with myself and self-discovery and learning and understanding and trying to set goals. We talked about that last time. And so this kind of ties in with that. Sometimes I do it together and sometimes I do it separate. And, setting boundaries is a constant check-in. You constantly have to check in with yourself and make sure you're doing okay and make sure that your boundaries are being upheld and make sure that you've got the right boundaries in place. And if not, do you need to put in other boundaries? So it's a constant check-in, if you want to call it that. But I think it's one that has to be done. And so that's what I like to do. Just take a minute. Your body will tell you. Your body will tell you where the uncomfortability is, where the negativity is. If you pause long enough to listen to your body and listen to your mind, they'll tell you what doesn't feel right, what doesn't seem right. I mean, sometimes it's very apparent, like if you're in an abusive relationship, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or something like that, that's pretty evident. But if it's more obscure than that, sometimes things that we need to set boundaries for are hidden deep, and we've managed through our survival skills to just push it down and bury it and move on. But we really do need to set boundaries for ourselves, to protect ourselves, to advocate for ourselves. And if you just look, you'll find those things. So that's the first step, identifying where the boundary needs to be set. And that was, in my example, that was what I had to do. I knew the problem and I knew where the negativity was. But what was I going to do about it? How could I somehow put up that boundary? And so, after thinking for a while, I decided that the boundary that I was going to put up was to limit the time either spent it personally or verbally with these individuals, because that was what would keep me safe. That was what would protect me. That was what I needed at the moment. And that's what you have to do as well. Once you identify the source of the negativity or what you want to change, be it a relationship, whatever, you need to think about how you're going to change it. You can just stop cold turkey. You can just cut that out of your life. Me personally, I couldn't do that. But I could limit time around those individuals. So you need to think about what is best for you. Sometimes it's best to just cut those sources of negativity, those situations, those people, those thoughts, just cut them out. But sometimes it's best to limit things in those situations. So once you do that, and once you've set your boundary and decided what it's going to be, then you need to uphold it. And you need to keep it. Don't let the negativity on the other side of the door bust the door down and just force themselves in. That's not the way it works. And if that's what's happening, then that's wrong. Because when a door is put up, you only walk through it if you're invited, if you're let in. You don't want people that or things that burst through that door to come through. Because that's just that negativity coming to take over your life, coming to take over your thoughts, your time, your space. But if you invite situations and people into your life, it'll fill your life with love, with support, with comfort that can truly help you grow and help you bloom into what you're going to be. It'll help you live your purpose and live your life to the fullest. I'm not saying it's not hard. It is. And like I said, at times I get sucked back into that constant cycle. But, you just have to try again. just break free and try again. That's all we can do. We don't have to be perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's not about perfection. It's about trying. You know, there's a quote in the book, in the movie, Made in Manhattan. And they say that it's not the fall that makes the person, but it's the way they rise. And there's that's so true. It's not about how you fall or if you fall, because we're all going to fall, but it's how you rise up. It's how you pick yourself up, and it's what you do with yourself after the fall. Nobody's perfect. You know, no, there's not one person that's perfect in this world that does everything right, but we are perfectly ourselves. That's the only thing perfect, is we are perfectly who we are. And we're just trying our best to get through this life with growth and understanding, compassion and love. And setting boundaries is not hatred, but setting boundaries is love for yourself and love for the other person, because you don't want situations and ideas and beliefs and people and all these different things showing either of you hatred or making either of you experience things negative. You don't want that. So boundaries are just showing love to ourselves, to each other, to others. And we need to just reframe that. So I invite you to set boundaries, to think about what it is, what those relationships, those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions, those places, those people, those situations are that you need to change or you need to protect yourself from. And think of what you can do to protect yourself, and then do it. Do it. It may not work the first time. You may have to change, and you may have to find what works and what fits. But you can do it. If I did it, you can do it. And I know it'll be hard. It'll be hard. And you'll see other people in these other situations and other relationships, and it's working for them. I see people all the time with relationships that were similar to the ones with the individuals I had to put the boundaries up with. I see it every day. And there are times when I long for that, and I wish that could have been my story, but it's not. I have a different story, but it's a good story. My story may be different, but it's good. And yours will be too. So I want to thank you for joining me today, and I encourage you, drop me a note, go to my Substack, let's start a conversation, look at my writing. You can access any of my podcasts for Revive and Rise on my Substack. You can access both of my books on my Substack. And anything that I write or thoughts or videos, anything will be there. So I invite you to go explore, get to know me a little better. Drop me a line so I can get to know you. And you have a wonderful day. And remember, whatever you're going through, you do not have to suffer alone. Thank you.